Hi everyone, I'm Nadia, and in today's video, my mom and I are making two sets of white and gold resin coasters. The first thing that we're doing is mixing our part A and part B resin for 3 to 5 minutes, and we're changing the direction that we're stirring in quite often to make sure that it's being stirred well. You'll know that you've done a good job stirring when you can no longer see what looks like lines or striations in your resin. After mixing, we allow the resin to sit for about 10 minutes to allow all of the air bubbles to rise to the top, and then we separate it into smaller cups to add the pigments. I'm going to be using this beautiful rich shade of gold by Just Resin, and it goes by the name Bright Gold. I make sure to stir it well in the container before I take some on a wooden stick and add it into a smaller cup. I make sure that the pigment gets mixed well into the resin, so I mix it for a few minutes, and my mom starts to mix in her white pigment, and she's using Just Resin in the shade Titanium White. She does the same process of stirring the pigment in the container first before she takes some on her wooden stick and mixes the pigment into her resin. And I'm taking the same white pigment and adding some into a small cup. My mom is going to be using these small shredded pieces of glass in her coasters, so she separates them into a smaller cup. To give them a gold tint, she adds some gold glitter and mixes the two together. Where I'm going to be using this jar that you can see at the top right corner, which is shredded glass already with a gold tint. She adds a little bit of clear resin into her small cup and mixes that together well. I take my clear resin and I start to pour into my molds. I'm doing so slowly and doing my best to make sure that I pour an even amount in all of the molds. We're making two completely different coaster styles but following the same theme using the same colors, white and gold. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys enjoy watching these types of videos where my mom and I make different coasters together. My mom starts to add her gold tinted glass into the rugged edges of the coasters and decides to pour a little bit of clear resin on top, and then goes ahead and pours the clear resin into those rugged edges before she adds the rest of the glass. I continue to pour clear resin into my molds, and once my mom has poured some of her resin, she takes the wooden stick and drags it along those rugged edges to make sure that it's reached all of the crevices. Then she continues to add her gold tinted glass, and I use a torch gun to pop any air bubbles, and when using a torch gun, make sure that you have it moving in a quick motion so that you don't burn your resin or your silicone molds. We also use a wooden stick to remove any dust or fibers that have gotten into the resin. And this is the gold tinted glass that I'm going to be using. My mom just decided to do a DIY version. I'm going to just be adding it directly into the molds, so I separate some onto the lid, and with a small wooden stick I start to add it around the edges of the molds. I pick up any pieces of glass that have fallen and add them into the molds, and my mom works on some finishing touches for her glass. Then I take my wooden stick and I push all of the pieces of glass as close to the edges as I can. And my mom decided to add more of the clear glass, so she took some with a small spoon and applied it onto the same area. Now she's going to be pouring her white pigmented resin, and she starts by pouring in the middle of the molds to be careful that the white pigmented resin doesn't go over the glass. So she pours through the middle and fills in the opposite side of the glass with white pigmented resin. While I'm doing any finishing touches on my glass and picking up any stray pieces and putting them back in the molds. Then she takes her clear resin and she pours it on and right alongside the gold tinted glass, and this causes the white pigmented resin to be pushed back. She does this on all 4 of the molds and then also goes back in with her white pigmented resin and adds a little bit to make sure that they're all leveled and that they're at a good height. Here she starts pouring the white pigmented resin, and here is where I finally start with my coasters. I waited a while so that the resin would become more like a high viscosity resin and thicken, because we are using a low viscosity resin. So I took my gold pigmented resin that I mixed earlier and took a small amount on the wooden stick and dragged it across the center of the molds. I started by making an X with a line down the middle with the gold pigmented resin on all of the molds. And my mom used the wooden stick to slightly blend the white pigmented resin with the clear resin. Once I had my little gold star or snowflake in my molds, I took the white pigmented resin and did the same motions. My mom continued blending, and then she took some gold leaf flakes and mixed it into a small cup of resin to add down the center. And I'm rotating between adding lines of the gold pigmented resin and the white pigmented resin. My mom carefully starts to add the gold flakes mixed with resin into her molds with a small spoon. And she uses a wooden stick to adjust the placement of the gold leaf flakes and to spread them around a bit. When we're done, we make sure to cover the surface with something. We usually use a large board, and this is to make sure that no dust particles or fibers get into the resin while it's curing. We work on some final touches, and then we both use the torch gun for the last time to get rid of any air bubbles. And here's a clip of me demolding the coasters. We added a heat-resistant top coat, and my mom added a partial gold trim onto hers, and here's the final product. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. Follow me on Instagram, Summer Girl Designs, and my mom's Instagram, Wild Heart Resin Art.